Hi, if you're thinking about moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're not sure where to go, how about Denton County? It's a great growing community just north of Dallas and Fort Worth. Come on, let's check it out. Today, we're going to talk about 179 ways that agents are worth every penny of their compensation. And I want to look at things big and small and help tell you how you get the worth out of your buyer's agent, your seller's agent, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about pre-listing activities. So if I was coming out to your house to list it, these are the things I'm going to talk about. We're going to make an appointment with you for that listing presentation. We're going to send seller a written email or confirmation. Just make sure this still works for you and you're going to be good. And if there's any questions you might have that I need to answer when we get together, please let that agent know that so they can come prepared for your questions. I do a lot of research of the neighborhood and the areas and what your home might sell for, because a lot of times agents that aren't experienced may take sort of a bird's eye view, maybe a mile around that given house. And if it was 2,500 square feet, like the one in that next neighborhood, but that was within that 1 mile area, they might compare those two houses, but they're in different neighborhoods, so that isn't really as relevant. You want to have the information that's most relevant for your sale. So you want to have an agent that can do that and research and look at all the MLSs and all the databases for information. Also, we'll know average days on the market, how long is it going to take to sell your house, what's the price range we think you'll be in, and location, so where all those houses are on that market analysis. Then download the tax roll form, and we'll be able to see, are these the people on this particular tax form? Is this the right information? So is the square footage right? Is this really 4-bedroom, 3-bath? Are the names here who are going to be the people selling the house? Because the tax office sometimes has that wrong, right? And we want to make sure you're built, what the taxes are, because that's really important to people. And then the exemptions you have. So maybe you have homestead, maybe you have veteran, maybe you have ag exempt, and maybe you have over 55. So there's a lot of different exemptions you can have for your taxes that help lower your tax rate. And so we want to make sure you get all of those when you move to the house. And once you buy a new house, that homestead exemption in Texas, you want to do that, apply for that right away. And so you will get that break in your taxes on the house. And then we'll do that market analysis and we'll decide and figure out what is fair market value for you. We would like to obtain a copy of your neighborhood and the different types. I want your survey. I want to know what the subdivision is, what's all in your subdivision that I can help sell your house, like parks, trails, basketball court, pools, common pools, walking, a lake where I could fish, all those kind of things. I want to know anything relevant about your neighborhood. So that's why a map of your subdivision is going to be good. And then we want to research that ownership and your deed type. So typically that's single family, but it could be something else in residential. So we just want to make sure we know. And then we will research the property's public record information for lot size and dimension. So we'll make sure we verify that what's on the tax roll is accurate to how the house is. We're going to research that legal description. We're going to look at codes and make sure all's good and make sure zoning is right. Sometimes we might even see that. I had one property one time that was in a floodplain, And when we went to resell it, it was not in that floodplain because FEMA had changed those maps over the course of the 10 years that the person owned that property. So that's just really good information to know. Want to make sure that legal name is correct. And we're going to prepare a listing presentation with materials and then perform an assessment of your neighborhood and your house. So I'm going to look at all things around. Not long ago, I was going to list a house and the house was completely beautiful. The house next door, however, was vacant, hadn't been maintained. The garage was off its hinges, so it was kind of looking funny. And so people, when they go to look at a house, they look at all that stuff. So be friends with your neighbors so you can go, hey, I'm going to sell my house. Can you mow your yard? Not really, but you know what I mean. And then we'll have a file on your house. We want to know all the schools that are around and what is the rating of those schools, so we can push that, because schools are a big deal, kids are a big deal. We want to make sure we're taking care of them. We'll review that listing agreement, make sure it's taken care of, and then make sure there's no functional obsolescence, nothing absolutely, wrong, nothing that's needed to be done. And we'll put your information in our database, and then we'll go to the appointment. We will kind of give you that idea of how the market is. What are the projections? We're going to look through the property, because there are things we will see and we'll say, hey, can you do this? A lot of times people maybe have a cluttered closet or stuff all over the floor in the closet. So my suggestion is always to remove anything that's on the floor. And that gives people the idea of how big that space is. So that's helpful. But anyway, we're just going to go through, talk about things that are valuable to you and what might be valuable for that buyer. And then we'll also tell you things you don't need to do. We will look and help create a space for you in the market that makes your house stand out. We'll do the CMA, which is the market analysis. And we're going to show you current properties that are listed that are going to be your competition. Sold properties that are similar. That's how we're going to find out kind of what your house is worth. Any current or expired listings. We're going to offer a strategy for you when you go to list your house, and everybody's strategy is a little different. So we'll be one-on-one to help you with that. But we'll discuss your goals, help you understand the market and what goes on behind the scenes when we have a house listed, explain roles to, protect people, and discuss a marketing plan, explain what that relationship is with that brokerage. Then we will talk to you, just tell you all about the listing forms and what you need to know. We will also we should provide you with a copy of all that. So agents will be very, very helpful. A knowledgeable, seasoned agent will be super helpful in the listing portion of this. And then we will talk to title company, make sure your information is correct, make sure your square footage is correct. We'll make sure your lot size is correct, make sure there's no liens. And typically title company will help with that, but also, some agents do also know how to go and look at property records and make sure that those are accurate, or there's not anything that would show like a cloud on title. If you have floor plans, we want to see that. If you have moved your fence, we're going to note that, because maybe you have a survey and maybe you changed your fence since then, and that might have changed the shape or the area. Even if you move that fence over just like 6 inches, that is because that's the perimeter typically of your property. Then we want to note that so we can just know what we need to accommodate. And then we're going to review plans, make copies, give showing instructions for the buyer's agent and when you can show your house. If appraisal becomes available, we'll try to review that with you. Typically, as a seller, you don't generally see the appraisal, but once you get into contract, people may say, oh yes, the house made value, which means the appraisal came in at whatever price you're in contract for. Also, one thing important is that we want to know what's going on with that homeowners association and what the bylaws are. Some homeowners associations, also called HOA, are stricter than others. So we can research, check that out. Also check out where your utilities come from. When I list a house, I ask people to tell me their average bills, what schools they're in, and then, what those providers are for electric, gas, septic, or whatever the case may be. And then we're going to calculate those averages, give you an average. So buyers really like to know, what is that average bill going to be for that water? But so all those kind of things we're going to verify. If you have anything that's on a lease, we're going to look at that and decide if you're going to change that, or if you're going to terminate that, or if you're going to let that go with a buyer. And then the buyer needs to know so that they can pick up that cost. Sometimes we see that on solar panels, where solar panels are not paid for, and they're on maybe the seller's paying that on a monthly fee, and the buyer does want them. So because that maybe will help save the environment, maybe it'll help them save on some bills, but we want to if you had something like that, we definitely want to talk about it so that we can put that in the plan. Lead-based paint before 1978, if the house was built, we just want to make sure we know that's when there was lead-based paint. So we do legally have to disclose that if the seller has any knowledge or not have any knowledge. But because the house was 1978 or earlier, we just want to disclose that. And we're going to just disclose all areas of what might happen when the house conveys, what will go with it. Because occasionally there are non-realty items. Like maybe the buyer wants to take the refrigerator and washer dryer, and that was something negotiated. So we'll want to list that all out. There will also be, you can do a pre-inspection of the house before you list it. So what does my house need? What are people going to tag me for? Or whatever, and you can have that done. You can also wait till the buyer puts it into contract, and they can do the inspection, and they're going to have a list of repairs they might ask for. If your house is vacant, we're going to try to make sure it's well taken care of and that we check on it regularly to make sure that everything's going well with the house. There's a home warranty that might be offered that buyer might ask for, so we'll want to explain those to you. We will have an extra key made typically for our lockbox. That way we keep one and then put one in the lockbox. That way everybody is safe, and you don't have to, if somebody pocketed a key or lost it or something, we could make a plan around that. Also, if it's a rental property, there are things like where we would want the lease on. If there was currently someone in the house, we would want that lease so that can go to that next buyer. So they may have a security deposit you have to give to them at closing, and they would like to know what the fees are to stay in that house. But also they may have a current lease that doesn't end when you buy the house. So in Texas, you have to honor that lease that's in place. And then once the lease is expired, if you will, you can do a 30-day notice to have somebody move out. And that does happen sometimes, or sometimes people will go, okay, yeah, I want you to keep renting from me, and that works well too. Then you might have to deal with the tenants on showings, that kind of thing. Then we will get a yard sign out there. We'll check out that new listing checklist, make sure we're doing everything, make sure we have great curb appeal. I typically will have a stager come into the house and work with the client's existing items to make sure that that house looks as good as it can for those pictures. And we'll put that in. I will also create a booklet for the house so that people, when they're coming to see the house, can see it. And then we're going to make sure we get everything about your house into the MLS. And we want to do that fairly quickly once we do get your house listed. And we want to determine, do we want to do coming soon? Do we want to just put it on the market when we get it on the market? So there are some plans, guidelines we need to do there. Prior to listing the house, I like to get all my nice professional pictures done so that we can show how great your house looks and put that on the market. I also do a virtual tour, and I try to get all the documents prior to listing your house. That way we have it when we're ready to go, and there's no questions about it. Or there's no empty spaces, nothing where a third-party vendor, when they picked it up, could get it wrong. We're going to provide all those copies of agreements to you and have internet and ads or work on social media to help market your house and talk to other agents to let them know about your house, return calls, do the lockbox, prepare mailings if that's the kind of area where that would happen. Typically, some houses sell quicker than others, so that might be a step you do in a few days after listing to see how the traffic is. You might want to have a just listed postcard that goes out to the area or flyers, and then we always try to get feedback and share always, that market update, that market information that's going on. And we'll have flyers in the house, or like me, I put that packet together so that people can look at that when they're in the house. And we want to talk to all the agents around that might have a buyer for that house, and we'll provide marketing, referrals. We'll note special features in the house, like if you have some features that stand out about that house, we'll do that. And then we'll submit any information that we have and put it into our listing and use it that way. We get feedback from agents when they show it. And then we discuss feedback with the seller or what that might be to help make the listing better or tweak it. We have marketing reports, weekly updates. Sometimes you might have a price change, so we might show that. And then if we have offers, so once we receive the offer, I'm going to go evaluate that offer with you, tell you what I think is great and not so great about the offer, talk to the buyer's agent and discuss it with them. I'm always going to make sure they've already gotten that seller's disclosure and survey if I have it, and make sure they're pre-qualified. I'll call that lender and make sure that they are pre-qualified, negotiate on your behalf, prepare counter offers. I like to prepare a spreadsheet so you know exactly what your bottom line is before you even sign the agreement. So I go, okay, they're offering $500,000. Here's what our costs are going to be. And here's what you owe on the house. So here is your bottom line, it's this number. And that is, I don't have an exact number, but I have a very close number, give or take just a little bit of money. And while agents do say, based on the information we have found and research, we think your house will sell in 60 days. However, we do not have any crystal ball to tell us that's exactly going to happen. It could be before that time or after that time, but we want to make sure we're always communicating with you and letting you know what's going on. And we will share everything about those contracts with you, and we will make sure they get to the title company, to the lawyer, to all parties involved to make sure that you have a successful sale on your house. And then before we even close, but after we get into contract, typically the buyer will do an inspection. So they will check, it's a really long thing. It kind of makes it sound like your house is going to fall down, but it's just that the inspector does a really thorough inspection and checks like 300 to 400 things within the house. So then they're going to check just about everything you could think of in the house. You know, they'll check for termites, mold, that like there's no cracks, the windows are working, there's no leaks, they don't see anything visible. Like they'll even get down to those toilet bowl screws like at your tub that they aren't secure enough. So like when I say they're thorough, they are so thorough. And then once we do get into contract, we will make sure we're following up with that lender on making sure the seller, the buyer, is going through all the right steps to get you to closing. Then that home inspection I already talked to you about, and then the appraisal. During the time once the house gets into contract, the buyer's lender will order an appraisal on the house. And so because the lender is lending money, that's the purpose of the appraisal, so that they have validation that that house is worth what that contract says, and they will say, okay, that makes value, or maybe it appraises higher than value. So that happens too. Then we get into the closing process. So we make sure that you are ready every step of the way. There are several forms typically that have to be signed that the title company will want. We'll make sure that that closing date is going to be good for you and where it'll be held, and that we know the time and place. If there's any title problems with like a cloud to title, maybe a bill that got attached to that title that has to be paid at closing, or unfortunately a death prior to the listing that where the person in title is named that might have passed away, we want to get sure, death certificates, all that kind of thing. And your buyer's agent will schedule a walkthrough of that house prior to closing so they can make sure that the house is as they saw it when you put it into contract. And you're going to double check, double check everything and look at those final figures. We get those about hopefully 2 or 3 days before closing, and we can show you a settlement statement and what the fees are, and we'll provide that to you so you can see. And if you're like already living in another state, then we will make sure you get someone out there to where you are now to get that taken care of. And we don't want any surprises at the end. And then once we're done, we will get that all closed out in the MLS. It'll be a very exciting day. And we will want to make sure we're going to keep the home warranty information so we know. We're going to try to resolve any conflicts. I typically will call that home warranty company too and make sure they signed you up for what it was you wanted on that home warranty. So we want to provide that. And I like to do with my group, my real estate team, we try to do VIP events quite regularly throughout the year. So once we close you, we would like to stay in touch with you for a long time. We kind of consider our clients our family. Is all the things realtors do, plus probably some more I forgot to mention, but that's a big list that can help you hopefully when you're looking to buy or sell a house, and 179 ways. So if you like this or have any information that you'd like to give me or questions you have for me, please go like and subscribe to my page here, and I'll be sure to get you any information you'd like. Talk to you soon.